Okay, the next pattern that we're going to work on and sort of build up from first principles are user groups. User groups are an incredibly common request for a permissions model that you might be adding to your application. And we actually have a lot of great examples of what user groups could and should look like under the Zanzibar model, specifically from Google themselves. Google uses user groups for the Google Groups product itself, which is like a mailing list product, but then those same groups also proliferate through Google Cloud and Google Docs, etc. So we're going to start with the very standard example of just having a document with direct readers, and then we're going to go ahead and layer on user groups. So let's get started. All right, here we've got the basic simple permissions model with document. It has a writer and reader. That's the direct relationship that a user can have with a document. And then it also has edit and view permissions. From the test data, I just have a single document with a single direct reader. And then we can see that as a direct reader of the document over in the expected relations tab. All right, so if we go back to our schema, the very first use case that we'd like to address is I want to be able to share a document with multiple users at the same time. So we can go ahead and add a definition for a group. And we're going to say that a group can have members, and those members are going to be of type user. Okay, so now we can go and we can start adding members to the group. So we can say group 1, member, user, group, member 1. Okay, and then we can make a couple of those, 2, 3, and 4. So now if we go over here and we regenerate, nothing happens, of course, right? Because we haven't actually shared the document with the group. But we can see the members of group 1 in this view, right? So if we just say empty list and then ask it to regenerate, we can see that group member 1, group member 2, 3, and 4, those are all now members of the group. So jumping back over to our schema, we can now say that we want a writer or a reader to either be a user or a group. Remember, we use the pipe character to specify that there can be multiple types for a particular relation. Okay, and then the last thing that we need to do is we need to share the document with the group. So we can say document group 1, reader, and now we'll share that with the group. Group 1. All right, and that should be it, right? So let's go ahead and regenerate. Oh, interesting. So group 1 is now a reader of the document, but group 1's members themselves are not readers of the document. So if we went and we did an assertion where we tried to say that like document doc1 view user group member 1, this will fail. So this is failing because the users are related to the group through a member relation. We haven't actually brought the member relation into the computation for view yet. So one strategy would be to say reader member. And we could also do writer member. So now let's see if that, okay, so now our assertion is passing, and now all of the members are being included as well. So one of the tricky parts, or one of the potentially unforeseen outcomes or unintended consequences of using this kind of pattern is that now, because of duck typing, if we added a member relation to the user, I don't know what that would mean necessarily, but let's say a user could have other members that were part of that user for whatever reason. This computation, because of duck typing, would now also include, would also follow those relations to members of that user. So another way to express this without that pitfall would be to actually include the members of the group rather than changing the computation. So now we see over here that this is failing. Why is this failing? Subjects of type group are not allowed on relation document hash reader. So the reason this is because we've said that if you're binding to a group, you actually have to bind in the group's members. So all we have to do here is say group member, and everything still works. So there's a subtle difference there where we're saying the group's members should be considered readers of the document and not the group itself should be considered readers of the document. But it does allow us to avoid that pitfall where if now we had a relation over here called member, that would not get included in the computation because this is just user over here. So we're not hoisting, we're basically hoisting the downstream computation of group member into the data plane. All right, so the next most common request is, what if I want groups that can be members of other groups? And what does that mean, right? Like, if I'm a group, then if I have a group as a member of my group, then when something is shared with my group, all of my child groups should be included as well. All of the members of the child groups should be included in those permissions as well. So what we can do here is we can say that member can either be a user or a group's members. And that would work, except for the case where we have more than one layer of nesting. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to say parent. Actually, we're going to say child because we're always marching toward the subject. Actually, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say relation member. We're going to change this to direct member. So the direct member of the group can either be a user or a group. And then here we're going to say permission member is direct member or direct members. So we're setting up a recursive relationship there. And now we should be able to add both users and groups into the group. So let's go ahead and set up a group 2, or we can say child group member, and this can be user child member 1. And then we have to say that group 1 has a direct member of group child group. We also over here have to say these can't be members. These also have to be direct members. So we're going to go ahead and change those all to direct member. And now member cannot write a relationship to permission member under definition group. Where am I trying to do that? Child group, direct member. There we go. So now if we rerun our assertions, those still work. And then if we regenerate this information over here, now we have child group 1, child member 1, and group members 1 through 4 are all allowed to view the document. We can also see over here that the child group and the child group member are also considered members of group 1. And that's basically it. So from here, you could go to meta permissions, right? You could talk about who is allowed to add a member to the group, right? And you could have group admins, and then the group admins, right? Like the members should also include the admins. And then this could be admin. And from there, you could just kind of grow and expand the group's use case as you see fit. We also have a fully baked example of how groups work in the Google Docs style sharing example in here. So here we've got user group, member, or manager. So you can share it with just a group's members, with just a group's managers. And then down here, we're sharing with the members and managers as the subtype. So yeah, I hope this was useful, and I hope you learned how to add groups to your application. Thanks.